Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am absolutely electrified to have you here today. For those who may somehow not know who you are, who are you?
I am Nikola Tesla. Some have called me an inventor, an electrical engineer, or even a dreamer of the future. But I prefer to think of myself as a discoverer of the secrets that nature has hidden in the lightning and the ether.
A discoverer of secrets. I love that. Let's start at the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I entered this world at the stroke of midnight on July 10th, 1856. It was in a small village called Smiljan in the Austrian Empire, which you now know as Croatia.
What was your given name at birth?
My given name was Nikola Milutinov Tesla.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
The most wonderful story. As I was being born, a fierce lightning storm was raging outside. The midwife, terrified by the thunder, called it a bad omen and said I would be a child of darkness. But my mother, bless her heart, held me close and replied, "No, he will be a child of light." I think she knew my destiny before I did.
That is incredible. A child of light born during a lightning storm. Talk about foreshadowing. What was your hometown like growing up?
Smiljan was a pastoral place, nestled in a beautiful valley. It was quiet, surrounded by mountains and sheep pastures. Life was simple, centered around the church and the land.
And what was your family life like?
It was a household of great intellect. My father, Milutin, was a priest and a poet with a prodigious memory. But my mother, Juka, was the true inventor. She never went to school, yet she created the most ingenious tools and looms. I always said I inherited my inventiveness from her. I had an older brother, Dane, who was a genius, and three wonderful sisters.
What kind of kid were you?
I was peculiar. I had a mind that never stopped. I would see flashes of light and vivid images of inventions before my eyes. I was constantly building things, even a small motor powered by June bugs. I glued 16 of them to a rotor, and they flew so hard they made it spin.
That's a bit of bug power for you. What were your biggest fears growing up?
Oh, I had many strange aversions. I was terrified of germs. I wouldn't touch anything that wasn't perfectly clean. I also had a peculiar fear of pearls. If a woman wore them, I couldn't even look at her.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
My father wanted me to enter the priesthood or the military, but my heart was always with the machines. I dreamed of harnessing the power of Niagara Falls. I saw a picture of it in a book and told my uncle, "One day, I will put a giant wheel under those falls and catch the water."
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I loved mathematics and physics. I could perform integral calculus in my head so quickly that my teachers thought I was cheating. I also spent many hours in the library. I had a photographic memory, so I would read entire books and store them in my mind for later.
What was your first job?
My first real position was as a draftsman for the Central Telegraph Office in Budapest. It wasn't glamorous, but it kept me close to the wires and the signals I loved so much.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was the visualizations. I realized other people didn't, quote, see their inventions in 3 dimensions, fully working and running, before they ever touched a tool. For me, the mental model was the reality. I didn't need blueprints. I had the machine running in my mind for weeks to see which parts would wear out first.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Deciding to leave Europe for America in 1884. I had nothing but 4 cents in my pocket, a book of poems, and a letter of recommendation to Thomas Edison. It felt like a desperate leap, but it was the start of everything.
What was your biggest break?
Meeting George Westinghouse. He was a man of great vision who believed in my alternating current system when the rest of the world was afraid of it. He bought my patents and gave me the resources to finally light up the world.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Oh, I was a ditch digger. After a falling out with Edison, I found myself penniless in New York, literalizing the phrase starving artist, except I was a starving engineer. I spent a year digging trenches for electrical cables just to survive.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. Even when I was digging those ditches, I was thinking of the rotating magnetic field. The ideas were too beautiful to let die.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
Precision in all things. I walked 8 to 10 miles every single day to clear my mind. I also did not sleep much, perhaps 2 hours a night, with a few recharging naps. And I always squeezed my toes 100 times for each foot every night. I believed it stimulated my brain cells.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I think I would have been a linguist or a philosopher. I loved languages. I eventually spoke 8, and I always enjoyed the deep questions of how the universe is put together.
What was your life like before fame?
It was a life of intense study and solitude. I was a student who worked from 3 in the morning until 11 at night. I was obsessed with the Graham dynamo and proving that alternating current was the future.
How did relationships change after success?
People became very interested in Tesla the Wizard. I hosted lavish dinners at Delmonico's and showed off my wireless lamps to famous friends like Mark Twain. But I remained a solitary man. I felt that marriage would interfere with my devotion to science.
Did fame bring happiness?
It brought the opportunity to work, which is where my happiness lived. To see the lights go on at the Chicago World's Fair and know that my system was doing it, that was a joy beyond words.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The constant battles, people trying to steal patents, the war of currents, and the pressure to always produce something more miraculous than the last. It can be quite draining to be expected to be a magician every day.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
They thought I was a, quote, mad scientist. Because I talked about wireless energy and communicating with other planets, they thought I had lost my grip on reality. But I was simply seeing a future they weren't ready for yet.
What was your darkest moment?
The fire of 1895. My laboratory in New York burned to the ground, destroying years of notes, models, and inventions. I lost everything. I had to start from zero with only what was stored in my memory.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I sometimes regretted being so focused on the technical that I neglected the financial. I tore up my contract with Westinghouse to save his company, which cost me untold millions in royalties. But I did it for the sake of the work, and I'd likely do it again.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
People thought I was lonely because I was alone. But I was never lonely. I had my thoughts, my inventions, and toward the end, my beloved pigeons. They were my truest friends.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
When JP Morgan withdrew his funding for my Wardenclyffe Tower, I wanted to give the world free wireless energy and information. When the money stopped, the dream stalled. I handled it by continuing to work on new theories, never losing faith that one day my world wireless system would become a reality.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
Fame gave me a platform, but fortune was always fleeting. I cared very little for money, except as a tool for more experiments. I lived in hotels and spent my last dollars on birdseed.
What personal battles were you fighting privately?
My own mind was often my greatest battlefield. The hypersensitivity, noises that sounded like thunder, the flashes of light, it could be paralyzing. I had to use incredible discipline to stay functional.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
My mother, without question. She showed me that you don't need a diploma to be a genius. She could knit 3 layers of delicate lace while blindfolded. Her spirit of innovation lived in me every day.
What was life like in your final years?
I lived quite simply at the Hotel New Yorker. I spent much of my time in the parks feeding the pigeons. I particularly loved one white pigeon. I felt we had a deep understanding of one another. It was a peaceful time of reflection.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
I was refining my theories on teleforce, what the newspapers called a death ray, though I preferred peace ray. I wanted to create a defensive shield so powerful it would make war impossible.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away in my room at the Hotel New Yorker on January 7th, 1943. I was 86 years old, and my heart simply decided it had finished its work.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I was obsessed with the number 3. I would walk around a building 3 times before entering, and I required 18 napkins, a multiple of 3, at every meal to polish my silver and plates.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you?
That I had invented a machine that caused an earthquake in New York City. I was experimenting with mechanical oscillators, and things did shake a bit, but the stories grew quite tall in the telling.
What was your most unique habit?
I had a photographic memory that was so intense, I could memorize entire books of logarithms or poetry. I could also build and test an entire engine in my mind without ever touching a piece of metal.
What was your favorite food?
I was very fond of soup, especially a nice vegetable soup, and I loved warm milk. In my later years, I lived almost entirely on milk, honey, and bread.
Did you have a favorite restaurant?
Delmonico's in New York. I had my own special table there for years. The service was impeccable, which suited my need for cleanliness.
What was your favorite book?
Goethe's Faust. I actually memorized the entire book. It was while reciting a passage from Faust during a walk in a park in Budapest that the vision for the rotating magnetic field finally came to me.
Did you have any known rivalries?
Well, the history books certainly loved the story of me and Mr. Edison. We had very different views on electricity. He was DC, I was AC. We were like 2 different poles of a battery, I suppose.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
I once cured my dear friend Mark Twain's digestive troubles. I had him stand on my high-frequency vibrating plate. He enjoyed the sensation so much he wouldn't get off, despite my warnings. A few minutes later, he had to dash out of the room quite suddenly. We had a good laugh about it later.
That is hilarious. Did you ever prank someone?
I was usually too serious for pranks, but I did enjoy demonstrating magic to my guests. I would make my body glow with electricity or light lamps in my hands to startle the skeptics. Their faces were always a delight to see.
What was the most outlandish purchase you made?
I wouldn't call it a purchase, but the construction of the Wardenclyffe Tower was my most grand and outlandish investment. It was a massive 187-foot tower on Long Island. People thought I was building a giant mushroom.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Be solitary. That is the secret of invention. That is when ideas are born. And do not work for the money, work for the sheer beauty of discovery. If you follow the light, the world will eventually see it too.
Nikola, this has been truly enlightening. Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you've shared today for our listeners?
Only that it has been a marvelous spark of life to share these memories. The universe is full of energy just waiting to be tapped, and I hope my story encourages everyone to look at the stars and the lightning with a bit more wonder. Thank you for having me, Calvin.
Thank you, Nikola. It was an honor. And that wraps up another conversation from beyond the grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.